Alrighty guys, back with another video. Today we're going to be discussing the story and the steps I took to live in this tiny home. I'm making these videos strictly for helpful insight and a little educational because I knew how hard it was when I first started 3 years ago, and I wish there was somebody that was doing these videos just like I am. My journey started about 3 years ago. I was watching a bunch of HGTV, watching these tiny houses on wheels, thought that was really cool. Started looking into it and realizing how much money you could save with it, smaller footprint, and just time on your hands, like how I explained on yesterday's video. And then I started doing more research because I was living in Colorado at the time. What I did is Google, typed in like shipping container builders around me or tiny house builds for sale. Came up across this website called Tiny House Listings. That's pretty much what I was spending my days on, trying to find either a pre-built shipping container or sometimes a manufacturer or somebody who is like a builder will post on there saying like, hey, I'm going to build a shipping container for 50, 60 grand, and then you just reach out to them and then you make your own custom tiny house or shipping container. My days were spent just scouring that website almost daily, to the point where I was finding some very interesting like shipping container and tiny house builds. They were all for like 50 to 80, almost $100,000, and that was in my budget at the time. But I did realize I had to get a loan, and that is another step, in which is a very hard step to take, considering it is a tiny house. It's not a regular home. Once I did find one that was in my local area off that Tiny House Listings website, I contacted the person, asked them, hey, can I come out, go see it, see if I actually like it. And I think I did that maybe 4 or 5 times. I got stuck at the same position. I like the tiny home. How am I going to get a loan for this? Because I don't have. You can negotiate with the tiny house people that are selling their tiny homes. Like, hey, can you do owner's finance? And what owner finance is let's say I was selling this tiny house. We would write an agreement, like a legal agreement, saying, hey, you're going to give me X amount for a down payment, and then for the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to pay me, $400 or $500 per month until it's paid off. That way, you don't have to go through a bank, get a credit check, and it damage it or whatever the case may be. My thing with the tiny homes, it's on wheels. It's considered a RV. So when you apply for a loan at different banks, now some banks won't do that, but they'll consider it as an RV, which is anywhere from 5 to 7 year loan, and then it's going to be pretty high interest rate and then a pretty high payment. This is very difficult because not a lot of banks even want to loan you money. Every time I was looking at these shipping containers or tiny houses that people owned, I always asked them, would you do owner's finance? Not a lot of them will. They want the money up front. They don't want to deal with that. I mean, I fully understand. I kept looking. I kept asking, would you do owner's finance? I even looked at different banks to see my best offers and stuff. And with the tiny home community being so big, these tiny homes on Tiny House Listings range from I found one for $20,000 all the way to $80,000 and everywhere in between. So you guys got to do your research. I'm not saying just go on that website, but the majority of people that are selling these tiny homes are on that. Going on Airbnb actually and asking tiny house owners in my area, hey, are you some of them will say right on their title, for sale, and I would message them too, or different ways of communicating and trying to find a tiny house. It took 2 to 3 years because I was like, what do I want to do? Do I want to build a shipping container or do I want a tiny house on wheels? The shipping container will have to be on a permanent foundation, aka I have to have land. And then the tiny house, I'll have a little bit more freedom where I can move it. I can be from tiny home community to like RV park, whatever I wanted to do. And I was just thinking, which is a smarter idea? Because if I had the shipping container and the land, I'll definitely have to have a loan. I was just thinking with the shipping container and a piece of land, I could probably do it with $100,000 loan. That would be probably 15 to 30 years. I didn't want a loan. I didn't want another, like a mortgage essentially. So I thought, okay, let's stick with the tiny house on wheels and see if there's anybody out there that will really do owner's finance. Skip forward about 2 years, which would be last year for me. I found a girl in the mountains that was selling her tiny house, and she just didn't want to do owner's finance. Let's just hold off on the tiny home and let's go look for some land, because that's an asset too, and maybe I could just build my own tiny house. After a whole year of looking at land, for my budget, it was just so far, like especially in Colorado, it was just so far out in the boonies that I could not do it. It was like 2.5 mile dirt drives, and I have that Tesla, and I can't be doing that in the winter. So that was unrealistic. I almost give up entirely on both of them. And then I found I kept just like looking on tiny house listings, and I found a company called Holy Ground Real Estate. It was almost too good to be true, where they were doing a sale for a tiny house that was $17,500, a fully custom tiny house. On their website, it said owner's finance. In January of 2021, I reached out to them and I said, hey, I want this, and this. I have X amount to put down, and I would love to be on the build calendar. And at the time, it was like 3 months. I got reached out to by email that they were going to give me a call. They gave me a call and we talked about it. They put me on the build calendar, and then I went to just to make sure everything was real, I went to go to their location. They have like 2 locations out in Colorado, and I went out to the location just to see the tiny homes that they were building in person. Just as I was about to quit looking for these tiny homes, that opportunity popped up. I put 50% down, which my tiny home is $22,000, so I put down about $10,000 in cash that I had saved. They already had, I think, 30 or 40 tiny houses on the list that they needed to build before mine. Skip forward to June of 2021. They reached out to me, started to. They got my trailer and everything, and it was just it was smooth sailing from there. Throughout that entire process, I was talked to through email and phone, just talking about like what did I want in the tiny home, how the tiny house was going to be, what it was going to look like, and then also, here's my budget for a monthly owner's finance until it's paid off. They built the whole tiny home, and I probably went there every other day, step by step, documented the entire thing and took photos of it just because I wanted to take photos and document the whole thing. Thought it was really cool. Came out looking better than what I thought, and now I'm here living in it. I mean, that's pretty much the whole story of how I started getting interested in tiny homes, and then also now I'm fully living in it full time. I made a good decision, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was very insightful and you learned something, and I will see you tomorrow.